Would caller on the line whose number ends in 3414, could you state your name for me, please? Would a caller on the telephone line whose number ends in 3414 please state your name?
James Saunders.
How you doing, Mr. Saunders? We thought that was you.
Outstanding. How are you?
Okay, at this point, is everybody ready? You all set? Good evening and welcome to the Kent County Board of Adjustment meeting for August 20th, 2020. We are calling the public hearing to order. When you're ready, would you please call the roll? Here.
Mr. Saunders,
Here.
Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Kusick,
Here.
Mr. Crossan,
Here.
Mr. Carter,
Here.
Ms. Denny.
Here.
Vote shows 6 present, 1 absent. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Will you introduce the staff, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Blair, and I'm one of the planners here at Kent County. With me is also Jason Barry and Jamie Fensky, who are also planners with the department. And Fred Townsend, to my right over there, will be our legal counsel for this evening.
This time I'm going to ask that everyone rise and pledge allegiance to our flag. Okay, so any additions or alterations to the agenda?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So when you're organized, will you introduce the public hearing, please?
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Scott Blair, and I'll preside as the hearing officer for tonight's public hearing. This hearing is being conducted for the purpose of providing the citizens of the county an opportunity to present testimony on these applications before the Kent County Board of Adjustments. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. This will provide those who wish an opportunity to give their testimony. There is an official recording of these proceedings being made. Therefore, we ask that only one person speak at a time, and they please speak clearly. Furthermore, there shall be no cross-examination of witnesses permitted during the public hearing, but the board can ask the applicant questions after any opposition if necessary. As a courtesy to other participants in the hearing, a maximum of 5 minutes will be allotted to any person who wishes to provide testimony. The chairperson of the board has discretion to allow additional time if deemed necessary. To make a statement when your application is called, please use either of the podiums at the front of the room. Actually, just the one podium, please. And if you are online and participating online, We will ask that you unmute your phone using *1 and you'll be able to give testimony. For the record, please give your name, address, and allow our attorney to swear you in prior to providing testimony. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the public hearing should be presented for identification so that they may be included in the permanent record. The procedure on each variance application will be as follows. The legal notice will be read on each case prior to the receipt of testimony. There will be a brief explanation of the application by staff. The board will then receive testimony from all of those in favor of the application, followed by testimony of any people who may be opposed to the application. Once those persons in favor and those in opposition have had the opportunity to speak, the hearing on that application will be declared closed. Decisions on all applications heard this evening will be made by the board during their business meeting that follows the public hearing. However, you do not have to remain after the public hearing once your request has been heard and closed. During the business meeting, the board will consider all information of record. A common vote of 4 members of the board shall be required to make a decision on each application. If you do not wish to wait for the business meeting later this evening, you may call the Kent County Planning Department tomorrow between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. at 744-2471 or check the Kent County Planning website to learn of the board's ruling. All applicants will receive written notification of the board's decision. This notice may not be mailed until after the next scheduled BOE meeting, but if approved, you are welcome to apply for any necessary permits prior to receiving this by mail. Please keep the decision in your records for both you and future property owners. The public notice of this evening's hearing was published on August 3rd in the Delaware State News. In addition, all of the subject properties were posted with a sign prior to the hearing to further notify the public of the nature of the application. Just a few other housekeeping things. We are open tonight to allow people to make testimony online. Please remember to keep your phone muted if you are online so you don't present background noise or anything that might disturb the meeting. When it's time and you wish to make testimony, you can push *1 and unmute your phone, and then we will take your name and other information prior to being sworn in for your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to have a statement from council, the purpose of which is to help those who are going to give testimony this evening to better understand what is and is not acceptable for this particular board. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Ms. Denny. The standards for the granting of area variances are set forth in the Delaware Supreme Court case known as Board of Adjustment versus Quick Check Realty, Inc. The standard applied considers whether a literal interpretation of zoning regulations result in exceptional practical difficulties of ownership. In order to determine whether exceptional practical difficulties are met, or that test is met, the board must weigh the following 4 factors. First, the nature of the zone where the property lies. Second, the character and issues in the immediate vicinity. Third, whether removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect neighboring properties. And lastly, fourth, whether failure to remove the restrictions would create unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements to the property. This factor is satisfied only when the difficulties alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. Note that the inability to improve one's business or to remain competitive due to area limitations may qualify as a legitimate exceptional practical difficulty. And it is with respect to this factor that the board considers whether the applicant is seeking more relief than is necessary to relieve the asserted difficulty. In general, the board is not permitted to consider factors other than the 4 I have listed. So those speaking both in support of and in opposition to applications are urged to present only information bearing directly on those 4 factors, which again stated briefly are 1, the zoning district, 2, the character of the immediate vicinity, 3, the effect on neighboring properties, and 4, whether the applicant faces exceptional practical difficulties of ownership. In particular, presenters are instructed to exclude from their presentations any discussion of personal disputes or acrimony between the applicant and neighboring property owners, as the board is unable and unauthorized to resolve such disputes. Presenters must limit their remarks to the issues the board can decide. Ms. Denny, that concludes my statement.
Thank you. So, at this point, let's begin this public hearing.
The first application tonight is A20-26, Alexis D. Viana Gonzalez. Is there someone here to represent this application tonight? Please raise your hand. Thank you. When it comes time to give testimony, we'll call you down and our attorney will swear you in. This application is Alexis D. Viana Gonzalez. The present zoning district is AR, Agricultural Residential. The proposed variance from the minimum is for the minimum accessory structure setback of 30 feet beyond the rear elevation of the main dwelling. The present use of the property is residential. The proposed use is the same in order to legalize a contractor establishment, Levy Court District 4, tax map parcel, and this property is located on the west side of Jenkins Pond Road, 190 feet southeast of Thompsonville Road, northeast of Milford. As you can see from this, the dwelling is there in the center, and there's an existing building in the back. That is the building that needs to be 30 feet behind the rear of the dwelling in order to operate this contractor's business at the site. The existing building is approximately 3 feet instead of 30, and that's why he's asking for a variance here tonight. This is a photograph of the front of the property location. Another photograph of the front. This is a photograph of the side yard of the property. The building in the rear in this photograph is the building in question. This is a photograph looking east of the property along the road. This is west of the property. Again, another photograph of the building. Another photograph. And this gives you some idea of how, that it's not 30 feet behind the rear of the structure as required. Just another photograph. And here's an aerial photograph showing the accessory building off down towards the bottom, and then the house towards the top. And again, you can see that it's not the 30 feet as required behind the rear elevation of the house. And this is just an aerial photograph of the surrounding area of the property. Is there anyone here to give testimony for this application? Please come down.
Mr. Gonzalez, would you go over to where the speaker is, and then the attorney will swear you in?
Alexis D. Viana, address is 691 Jenkins Pond Road, Milford, Delaware.
Mr. Gonzalez, if you would, could you pull the microphone closer to your face? It can be adjusted. All right. Very good. And you may want to raise it a little bit, too. Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony or affirm your testimony that you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please proceed and make an effort to speak into that microphone, please.
Well, the reason that we're here for is trying to get a home-based contractor's license. As the Mr. Blair said, property is too close to the existing building. There's really not a way to move it from, the 30 feet that you guys are requesting, since it'll be on the property for the neighbors. And on the other side is the septic, and, we're, where the building is at right now, it's, there's cement on the floor, and it'll be really hard to move.
Okay, so I just have a couple of questions. First, the building has been there, and now you are just deciding at this time that that's what you want to use it for? It was put there for another purpose, and now you want to make it a contractor's building? Or did you decide you wanted a contractor's building and put it there, not realizing that you needed the additional setback?
Well, the structure was built before we bought the property. So when we bought it, after we decided to start the towing company, it was already years after that.
Okay, sure, that makes sense. Okay, I think that's actually all I have. Anybody else? Questions?
What is the nature of the business? Is it like lawn care, or is it like a pool service?
Well, we have a towing business, so it's convenient to have the tow trucks at the residence since we offer a 24/7, service for the people.
Anybody else? Well, that was short, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in favor of this application?
Did you want to be sworn and give testimony that you're in favor of it, or against it, whichever? This is the in favor segment. You got to come up, and I'm sorry, because we have to make a recording of this hearing.
Before you come up, is there anyone else in favor, though? Oh, okay, you are in favor. I wasn't sure if you were opposed or in favor. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
my name's Kenny Moore. I'm
And
his
your
neighbor.
your address?
314 Thompsonville Road.
Okay, and our
Mr. Moore,
attorney.
do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
All right, please proceed.
Okay.
Oh, I've got no problem with coming to business back there. So, I did being nosy with his babe, so I don't have no problems with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yep, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor of the application? Is there anyone online that might be in favor of the application? If so, please press star 1. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone opposed to this application in the room? Anyone? Is there anyone online that is opposed to this application? Please press star 1. Okay, if there's no further testimony, the hearing for A20-26 is closed. The next application is A20-27, James E. and Deborah L. Smith. Is there anyone here tonight to represent this application? Please raise your hand. Great, thank you. When it comes time for testimony, we'll call you up.
So this application is for James and Deborah Smith. They're asking for a variance from the requirement that an accessory structure shall be located no closer than 5 feet from the side property line. They're asking to place an awning on the property within a foot of the side property line. It's located on Upper King Road. Here you will see they're asking for a setback of 1 foot from the property line to place a new awning on a concrete pad. Here's the rear of the property. Looking down Upper King. Looking south down Upper King. the front of the property, and you will see an existing garage and an existing awning. They're asking to place the new awning over the RV. He's looking down the side property line. Again, this is, again, where the awning will be placed, will be right over the RV. In the rear of the property, and the aerial. Mr. Smith, if you would like to come up and state your case, please. State your name and address, and then allow our attorney to swear you in.
Good evening. My name's James Smith, 586 Upper King Road, Felton, Delaware.
Mr. Smith, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed with your testimony.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, I have an existing awning on concrete that I keep the boat under, and I just recently retired. We purchased a motorhome, which I'd like to keep on my property. I have a lot of money, $150,000 invested in it, which I'd like to keep covered. And there's no way I can back in the backyard because the trees right there are actually my neighbor's trees, which they are have no problem at all. I have a letter that they signed that they have no problem with the awning going up. I keep my yard, I keep everything immaculate. I pick all the trash up on the road. I take care of everything. Everything is spotless. So as far as appearance, no one has a problem with it, but I just would like to get the permit so I can pour a concrete pad and put the awning over top to protect my investment, please.
Okay, so just as a matter of housekeeping, the planning staff recommendation was for us to deny this application. So of course, this is our opportunity with testimony to figure out what we need to do here. My first question would be, and I guess you somewhat explained it, but when I look at the map and the drawings, it does feel like there's a lot of property behind there if you could just move it back.
Ma'am, I can't go straight back. It would just sit there in a backyard, and you have to plug it into the garage to the electrical outlets, and my neighbors have no problem whatsoever with me putting it there. It would not interfere with anybody. I drive a tractor trailer, 53-foot, retired 35 years through Philly, Detroit, and everything. I recently retired with no accidents. I cannot back it back in that backyard with all those trees, and they're not my trees to cut. Although I maintain, for 28 years I've lived there and take care of everything.
Okay, so anybody else? Questions, comments?
Yeah,
Mr. Townsend, oh.
is the boat the only other item that you normally keep under the current canopy?
Yes, it's a low canopy. The RV, I'm gonna have to put a tall one.
Right. So if you were to put the new canopy in place of where pour some additional padding and put it where the existing awning is, and then at the end of that new canopy, put your boat in under it sideways. Just put your new awning over where your existing awning is. You have to add a concrete pad, obviously, to make it larger. That would take care of the offset, and you would have room, depending on the length of your awning, you could have room to put your boat.
So you're saying height-wise, sir, that, I mean, I can't have a low awning you put cars under, and then I need 13.6 high awning.
I'm talking about replacing it. Replace where your existing awning is there now. You can take the awning down, there's a pad there. You have to add to that pad, but you could put your new awning in place of the old and add your cement to make.
Where could but I don't understand what actually is would be, I mean, I know the law is the footage-wise, but is there any reason with no opposition that I can't put it beside the other awning so it would look right? I can't park it anywhere else.
Well, here's this in a nutshell. The code, the county code is the code. And so we're tasked as the Board of Adjustment to occasionally people come in and there's just really no way, at no fault of their own, that they can comply with the code. Many different reasons. And it's up to us to sort this all out and make a decision as to whether we will allow a variance from the code. And so in doing that, we also are kind of charged with the task of trying to help you figure out another solution. Now, I know you've already spoken with the planners and have gone through some of that. And I had the exact same thoughts when I first saw this application. I'm thinking, why can't he widen the pad that is next to the garage and put taller posts and then put that motor home there, and possibly then the boat, you could maybe even extend it longer or something, and then the boat could either go behind it or around. And so that's the question we're asking. And we're looking for your testimony as to whether that's something that could be done.
Yes, ma'am. Well, if I put the tall awning beside the garage, now every time to get the boat out, I don't know how I'm gonna hook my truck or move it. You can't move it by hand. I can't park the boat behind the RV, so now I'm gonna have to move the RV just to get things out. I mean, it will look, I'm just asking, you know, I see your point, but it doesn't help, you know, any of the situation of getting the RV out of the yard or the boat. The pad has to be 12.6 wide to put a 12-foot awning on it. And the 12.6 is what's coming within a foot of the property line.
So if the awning next is currently attached to the garage were not there, and you did the 12, you then expanded that awning out, would it then you wouldn't be compliant, but you'd be closer to compliant?
Yeah, I don't understand like where I would put now the awning I already have there. I mean, I purchase another awning, and then you're saying put the smaller awning behind it? It's gonna look ridiculous. And then I can't get things in or out or plug anything into my garage that needs to be, you know, everything charged. And it's like I said, my neighbor has no problem at all. No one has a problem with what I want to do. There's a better picture. And right where it's sitting, if you look at by that bench, that's actually on my neighbor's property. And I've told him that I will gladly move everything back, and he's, no. You are fine. I maintain the trees, I cut the grass, and I take care of that whole row of trees goes all the way back. But my property line, by the bench, you see the little tree, you come in about a foot, and that's my property line. And that's why I say I would put a concrete pad and the taller awning, and it sits right there. If I can't turn it at all, I can't turn that RV. And what you're saying is if you picture the RV where the boat is, then back that boat back into the yard, well, I'm taking my grandson fishing tomorrow morning at 4:30. I fish 3-4 days a week. So I mean, I have to move the RV to get the boat out?
I see what your point is. Again, we're just trying to help you come up with a different solution. And again, realizing that either way, you're still going to be too close to the line, but we would like to do our best to enforce the code as much as we can and preserve that. And I have a great appreciation when somebody comes in and they can testify, or neighbors send letters or testify that it's not a problem for them. But sometimes real estate exchanges hands, and then there are issues, and sometimes those issues come up even just in the settlement of a property. The lawyers have to get involved and say, why is this, and then you have to prove that there was a variance. I mean, it can become complicated. So we do our best to try and help you figure something out. So that said, anybody else?
One last question. Do you know how wide the existing pad is under the canopy?
12.6, sir.
No, the existing.
The one that's sitting there with that bass boat on
Right.
it? Yeah, it's 12.6 wide,
And what is the width you need for the camper?
12.6. Those awnings come 12 feet wide,
Okay,
so it can be correctly anchored into the concrete and everything.
So the RV you would not do anything to the pad if the RV would back right into that pad if it weren't for the canopy that's there now. Is that correct?
Yes, it's only 28 feet, and I need 38 feet for the RV.
And you need 12.6 to width also?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Townsend,
If I could, I will ask a question.
Sure.
During your testimony, Mr. Smith, you mentioned that the trees are not on your property, or you're just referring to the ones that are on the left-hand side of the RV there, I guess, not the trees that are...
Yes, they're not on my property.
The ones
Actually, the tree by that bench is not on my property. My property is about 2 feet I'm looking at it, the left side of the RV.
But the trees that I can see in the back of that picture behind the bass boat...
That's not my property.
That's not your property.
No, sir.
can we see an overhead of that again?
Are those trees that were just circled on your property?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do those trees that are more behind your house present an obstacle to you in finding another location for the structure?
Yes, I can't turn that RV. There's not enough room.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Going once, going twice.
I'd just like to state, I'm not sure how this really works, but Ms. Fensky has a letter from my neighbors that have no opposition whatsoever about putting it there.
I believe we did see that letter.
thank you.
That we're aware of that. And again, it just, I don't know how all this is going to work out, but thank you for your testimony.
Okay, I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there anyone else here in favor of this application? Is there anyone online in favor of this application? Please push *1 to unmute your line. Okay, is there anyone in the audience that is in opposition to this application? Is there anyone online that is in opposition to this application? Please push *1 to unmute. Okay, hearing no more testimony, the application for A20-27 is closed.
Next, we have application A-20-28, Jason Pfeiffer. Do we have someone available for this application? Thank you. So Jason Pfeiffer is asking for a variance from the 15-foot setback to attach a one-car garage to the existing dwelling. It's located on the west side of Tuxedo Lane. Here where you will see that they are proposing to put a 16 by 30 garage attached to the house within approximately 7 feet of the side property line. Required is 15 feet setback. Here's the front of the home. The attached garage will go to the right. This is looking down Tuxedo Lane. The other way down Tuxedo Lane. This is looking down the side property line. And the side property line where the proposed attached garage is going. Where the attached garage would be going. And the aerial. Sir, if you would like to come state your name and address for the record and allow our attorney to swear you in.
My name is Jason Pfeiffer. I live at 187 Tuxedo Lane, Woodside, Delaware.
Mr. Pfeiffer, do you solemnly swear the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I'm here tonight requesting a variance. I'd like to put the attached garage on the north end of the house. And it puts me really close to the property line. The lines are, especially on that side of the house, is very sharp. It's not straight as it would be nowadays, I think. I've spoken with my neighbor on my right, Dave and Gina Wilson. They didn't have any opposition to it. So.
Okay, so can you put the photograph of the front of the house that shows? So I have a question. Was that always an addition to just part of the house, or was that originally a garage that was converted into rooms?
It was originally a two-car garage. I have closed it in. It's not finished. It's going to be hopefully finished when the new garage is done as a family room.
Okay. You know, it's interesting because I'm one of these board members who really feel that garages belong at the end of the driveway. So these things are always hard for me. But so when you put the addition on, was there a reason why you didn't put it on the other side so that you wouldn't have this issue with the garage? And I realize you may not have known at the time.
Are you talking where the lane is now? On the south side of the house? Or the
Yes,
on that end?
yes, yeah. That's your property over to the fence, right?
Yes, the lane is there. When I grew up in this house, my parents gave me this house in 2017. And the long-term project was I applied for, I forget what it's called, accessory cottage, which it was approved. And the accessory cottage is actually going to be for my parents to live in. They're getting in their mid-70s, and to have them close to me and my kids. That's a project that is in the future. It hasn't been completed yet. That's why the lane is there.
Okay, so now that you've explained it, I see that lane is access to the cottage.
Yes.
And your parents are going to occupy the cottage at some point.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, anybody else have any questions or comments or thoughts?
One question, please. I noticed that where you want to put the new garage, part of that is, the front part looks like does meet the setback requirement. It's the middle to the back that encroaches on it.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that you can't slide that forward a bit? which
I
would
don't-
then,
I
the
just-
closer you, the closer, the less encroaches on the lot line.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's just, I think for the overall look of how I want the property to look, I would prefer it to be kind of stepped back like that. And I'd also like to have a door so that I can access the garage from the rear yard.
And the 16 by 30, is there a particular reason it has to be 30 feet deep?
When I did my initial planning and thought on it, I wanted it to be, it's an oversized garage. It's just a single car garage. It's not like a 2-car garage. So I tried to get the most out of it, honestly, just so I could store my things and my car in there.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. Is there anyone else here in favor of this application? Is there anyone online in favor of this application? Please push *1 to unmute. Okay, is there anyone in opposition to this application here? Or online, please push *1 to unmute the phone. Okay, there's no further testimony. The hearing on A20-28 is now closed. The next application is A20-29, Calvin and Jacqueline Ravenel. Is there someone here to represent this application? Thank you. When it comes time, we'll call you up. Okay, this is A20-29, Calvin and Jacqueline Ravenel seeking variance from the 10-foot side setback requirement to construct a deck. The property is located on the east side of Heartleaf Lane at the intersection with Viola Drive, being Lot 48 in the Meadows of Chestnut Ridge subdivision, west of Magnolia. It's Levy Court District 4. The zoning district is AC. As you can see from the plan here, where the deck goes to the back, in order to have the proposed deck of 10 by 16, they need to move 5 feet from the property line as opposed to the 10 feet that is required. Here's a photograph. You can see there's currently a vinyl fence back there that separates the property from the neighbors. And you can see kind of the location where it would be back behind the house. This is a view on Heartleaf Lane, looking, I guess this would be maybe north. This is the other side of the house. Yeah, it was kind of humid that day when I was taking photographs. This is, I believe, looking down Viola Drive. And this is a good photograph of actually where the deck would come off from the rear sliding doors you can see there. Again, this is another view from the road, a photograph. You can see the distance between the property line, which is the fence, and the Ravenel's house. And this is an aerial photograph. You can see this property fronts on 2 roads. And you can see this is the aerial photograph of the neighboring subdivisions. Okay, Mr. Ravenel, would you like to come and speak in favor of your application, please? And please state your name and address and let our attorney swear you in, please.
My name is Calvin Ravenel, 300 Heartleaf Lane, Magnolia, Delaware, 19962.
Mr. Ravenel, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay, the procedure I wanted to do is put a deck up in the back of my house. And I noticed I was, the measurements I was coming close, but I asked my neighbor to give me okay, and we signed a notarized document saying we both agreed. And that's it.
Okay. And I would assume that at some point where that deck is where you would come out from a kitchen or dining or den out to the deck. So that is the sides. It wouldn't work on the side. The other thing is it's a double frontage, so.
No.
But, okay.
Because the doorway for the deck is right there on that side, so that's what it is.
Okay. I think that's all for me. Anybody else?
This lot is fenced in now?
You mean my neighbors or mine's?
Yeah, there's.
So it's the neighbor's lots that's fenced?
Yeah, that was fenced in a long time ago, even before I decided to put the deck. They had that up, the fence.
Anybody else? Mr. Townsend?
Mr. Ravenel, just for the record, could you add some testimony as to why you would like to have a 10-foot wide or 10-foot deep deck which extends into the rear yard setback, and why 10 feet is your desired width?
Well, the reason we said 10 feet, because then I can put stuff that I want on my deck. And, you know, and I'm about like 5 feet away from the fence. So it gives me enough room, you know, so I can put my stuff that I purchased already on my deck, you know, so.
So 8 feet is not sufficiently?
No. That, it would be a little tight, so I try to go as much as I can, so. And 10 feet would be perfect.
And this deck is screened in or just open?
Open.
Open, okay. All righty. Anybody else?
I have one more question. Did you give any thought about going around to the corner?
The other side?
So the deck will, obviously, you'll enter the deck off the back, then have a little walkway to the bigger deck. I just feel like it'll be more enjoyable for you.
Well, the way we have it set up, the walkway, the stairs going down, well, I can't see. It would be facing, coming out this on the other side, the stairway, where I had the deck going. So it wouldn't be any problem to anyone. Yeah.
Anybody else? Are you good, Mr. Busick, or do you? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Ravenel. Is there anyone else in here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Or anyone online that would like to speak in favor of this application? Please push *1 to talk. Okay, is there anyone in opposition to this application? Either in the room or if you're online, please push *1 to unmute. No? Okay, being no more testimony, the public hearing for A20-29 is now closed.
Next, we will hear application A20-30, Moores Lake Shopping Center, LLC. Is there anyone here on behalf of this application?
Can I pull this mask down to speak?
Yes, but just a moment.
Mark Schaefer.
Sir, just a moment,
Oh,
please.
I'm
Let us
sorry.
introduce. So we have Moores Lake Shopping Center, LLC. They're seeking a variance from the maximum impervious surface coverage of 75% from the side setback of 20 feet with a 50-foot aggregate and from the parking and drive aisle setbacks to enable a minor lot line adjustment. As you will see, the maximum impervious allowed is 75%. The existing impervious would be 90.3%. The existing property line you will see in blue with the proposed in orange. They are proposing a 8.3 feet setback, and they're actually crossing property lines. So they would have a negative side property, or I'm sorry, a negative parking and drive aisle setback. On this diagram, you will see the existing in yellow, the proposed in red with the dash mark is also their proposed. Where the arrow is, that's the staff's recommendation for the property line that will allow the property line to follow the existing curbing. This is from State Street, I believe. This is looking down where the parking and drive aisle setback would be, separating the property, allowing for the minor lot line adjustment. Looking down Lebanon, and on the property. Looking down South State Street extended. The building to the left in this picture would be subdivided off. It would be a separate parcel. The rear of the property. Looking in the rear of the property again. And in the front. There's the aerial. Sir, if you would like to state your name and address for the record and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Mark Schaefer, Moores Lake Shopping Center, P.O. Box 717, Lewis, Delaware, 19958.
Mr. Schaefer, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do swear.
You may proceed.
I'd like to ask the board to consider this application as recommended by staff to be a modified approval. We do not believe that the nature of the application affects any of the surrounding properties, nor does it affect the character of the immediate vicinity, nor would it seriously affect any neighboring properties. And we do believe that in its current state there is a hardship, and we're asking you to recommend approval. I will tell you that the plan is to remove the existing liquor store building and build them a new building farther to the west.
Okay, so based on your testimony, Mr. Schaefer, you are in agreement with the planner's modified recommendation for
Yes.
modified approval? Okay. That said, anybody have any thoughts or questions of Mr. Schaefer?
Just so the liquor store is going to be torn down once the lot lines are adjusted?
Well, we're in the planning stage right now. We've retained Davis, Bone, and Friedel of Milford to do a new site plan, which we will be submitting to staff for their review and bringing it back before the Planning and Zoning Commission and then Levy Court.
Yeah, the lot looks terrible next to it. All overgrown weeds,
Yeah,
tractor trailers parked there, and the numerous during the weekends. It looks like a real disaster hit there.
Yeah, we continue to attempt to clean the site up. It's been a long and laborious process, believe me.
You can see it going on. So. Okay, anybody else?
I have a question, James Saunders.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Schaefer, I'm trying to understand. You say you're making that lot smaller. So is that creating the problem that you're saying that you're going to have to, for the impervious surface, to go to 90.43%?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I apologize. Can Mr. Townsend maybe?
According to the staff response, says that if this doesn't meet the maximum impervious required, that you would have to remove approximately 1,168 square feet of improvements. But when you look at this, what you're trying to make this proposal, you're making your lot smaller. So you're creating the impervious surface.
I guess my answer would be that I think there's 6 tax parcels at this center, and we're attempting to clean those up and delineate them appropriately. It's our intent to end up with 2 or 3 tax parcels when we're all said and done. And that's the red line delineates the property that Royal Farms currently leases in a ground lease agreement with us. So it's exactly the same as in their ground lease. And there's really no changes other than cleaning up and adjusting the lot lines and getting rid of some of these additional tax parcels. It's a little confusing to have 6 different tax parcels.
And who controls this stormwater management pond if that's taken out of that?
We have signed a maintenance and management agreement with the owners of Royal Farms, and we submitted that to staff, and it will be recorded, and staff has reviewed it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, just the way I'm understanding is that essentially the lines, the red and blue lines here aren't necessarily physical changes in the amount of concrete. There's some building, but essentially you're just taking that same property and changing the lines.
Correct, yeah, the property be identical tomorrow as it is today.
You're just adjusting the lines to eliminate, combine some of the tax parcels?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in favor of this application or online? Please push *1 to unmute. No? Okay. Is there anyone here or online in opposition to this application? Again, if you're online, please push *1 to unmute. Oh, is there anyone in person here that is in opposition to this application? Okay, if there's no more testimony, the application for A20-30 is now closed. Okay, the next application is A20-31, Janet M. and Donald H. Voss. Is there someone here tonight to represent this application? Please raise your hand. Oh, I see your hand in the front, Ms. Voss. Thank you. We'll call you up for your testimony in a minute. Again, this is A20-31, Janet M. and Donald H. Voss. They seek a variance from the front setback of 40 feet to enable the construction of an addition. The property is located on the north side of Sandbox Road at the intersection with Beech Tree Lane, northeast of Harrington, Levy Court District 4th, Zoning District AR. As you can see from the plan here, The proposed sunroom, 12 by 16, is on the front of the house. And you can see when it is built, it will be 28 feet from beach when the setback is 40 feet. This is a view of the property. You can see there's an existing deck there already. The addition will go next to that. This is another, oh, that's fine. This is another view of the property from Sandbox Road. This is a view from the property on Beach. And again, on Beach Tree, this is the aerial photograph. Again, you can see the deck that is already existing there for reference. The addition will not come out any further from the deck. It will be next to it. And this is just an aerial photograph of the immediate area around it. You can see the borrow pit to the south and mostly residential lots and farm fields around it. Okay, Ms. Voss, would you like to come up? Please state your name and address and let our attorney swear you in, and please give testimony. Thank you.
My name is Janet M. Voss, 467 Sandbox Road, Harrington, Delaware, 19952.
Ms. Voss, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please continue.
In the papers we turned in to the commission to get the permit to start with, they said we needed a variance. 12 years ago, we got a variance for the deck. We want to now put a multi-purpose sunroom adjacent to the deck, coming 16 feet towards Sandbox. When we built our garage on the other side of the house about 18 years ago, we already had to move the pipes from the well coming to the house. If you go out the back door, you have the holding tanks for the septic system. This side of the house, you have the septic drainage field. So the only place you really could put any addition onto this house would be on the front. If we tried to put it on this side towards the front, you'd be going through the wall of the bedroom, the master bedroom. Our contractor has already suggested we take the one front living room window out and put a 5-foot sliding door in to make easy access to this room. And when the house was put in, we have 2 front properties now because the house was put in and Beech Tree Lane was not even there. My house and the one across the street were both put in facing a dirt patch. None of my neighbors have said anything. 2 of them have said, oh, go ahead, we have no problem. Eventually, they're going to want to do things to their homes. And since we had the variance 12 years ago and it runs out in 10 years, we're back to get a second variance.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question. So had you considered taking the deck and enclosing it into a sunroom? Well, it would still require a variance.
It would still require a variance to change that, I'm sure.
Okay.
And I like sitting out in the open on the deck on a swing reading, but then in the winter or late fall, early spring, the enclosed room with 3 windows across the front and 2 on each side would be nice to be able to sit out on also. I'm an outside person.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
This is a question probably for the staff. What is the setback for the deck from the road?
28 feet, I believe, from the the part closest to the front.
Decks are typically 10 feet from rear and side, but I believe in the front it can be 40% of the actual setback closer. So 40% of, what is it, 40, what's that, 16 feet or something like that?
Yeah.
Half would be 20, so.
When I look at that photo that we're seeing, I envision that the sunroom will pretty much just fill in where that shadow is. It doesn't come to
Yes,
the
it doesn't
end.
come
It's
clear to the
pretty
end.
much where the shadow.
There's still a window there, this side of it, which is from the master bedroom, and it would take up the space, correct, where the shadow is, where the shadow squares off.
Okay. Anybody else? That's it.
Okay, now this 7442471 is the number I can call tomorrow to find out?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Voss. Is there anyone in the room who would like to give testimony in favor of this application? Is there anyone online who would like to give testimony in favor of this application? Please push star 1 to unmute. Okay, is there anyone in the room who would like to give testimony in opposition to this application? Is there anyone online who would like to give testimony in opposition to this application? Please push star 1 to unmute. Hearing no other testimony, the application for A20-31, the public hearing is now closed. Okay, the next application is A-20-32 S&T Properties LLC. The owners are Todd and Shelley C. Wise. Is anyone here tonight in the room to represent this application? Great, thank you. When it comes time, we'll call you down to give your testimony. Okay. S&T Properties seek a variance from the 75-foot front setback on a major road and the 24-foot wide drive aisle set width to enable the construction of a porch. This property is located on the west side of South DuPont Highway and the intersection with Delaware Avenue, just north of Harrington, Levy Court District 6. The zoning is BG, general business. So here is the view of the proposed porch. As you can see, at the current time, the existing building is about 27 feet. I believe that's 3 inches actually, which is the existing setback, and it would be compliant because it's more than 24 feet and provide an adequate drive aisle. With the porch, because of the angle of the lot, the proposed drive aisle width would then be 20 feet, about 3 inches, which would be less than 24 feet. And it would be closer than the current existing setback of 27.33 inches. Here's the view of the property. This looks like it's from DuPont Highway, looking towards Delaware Avenue at the front of the building. This is looking north on 13 DuPont Highway. Also looking north. Again, this is looking at Delaware Avenue again from 13. And this is looking southbound towards Harrington down DuPont Highway. This is a view of the existing building, the front of it. You can see 13 DuPont Highway on the left and Delaware Avenue on the right. And this is a view of Delaware Avenue, and it gives you some idea of the distance the building is from Delaware Avenue as it exists now. And here's a close-up, again, of the current corner of the building and Delaware Avenue. And this is looking at Delaware Avenue kind of northeast towards 13 at the light. And here's an aerial photograph. You can kind of see, I believe the canopy and things like that towards the center have been removed, as is the sign, as the renovation is ongoing. And finally, this is the aerial of the immediate area. There's a lot of other businesses along 13 here as you go into Harrington. Okay, Mr. Wise or Ms. Wise, would you like to give testimony, please? Please state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in. Thank you.
My name's Todd Wise, 2884 Andrewville Road, Greenwood, Delaware.
Mr. Wise, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So, this building that my wife and I own, purchased about a year ago, is destined to be a sandwich shop. Much needed in that area, a good sandwich shop. It's going to be owned and operated by myself and Shelley. I'm actually going to be doing this as like a retirement thing, but what I'd initially like to do is look at the response to the criteria from the Planning Commission. I'm not a great speaker. I'm not real articulate, so you have to bear with me. So it looks like on the response of the criteria 1 and 2 are kind of on the same agreements as what I am. If we move down to the number 3, one of the main things would be cars couldn't pass between Delaware Avenue and the corner of the building, which is that 24-foot width that is needed to have two-way traffic. If you look at the picture, if you can show that shot of where the corner of the proposed, or that shot you just had back, the porch at the 20.3 measurement. Can you? Yeah, there you go. The 20.3 measurement is the furthest leading edge of the porch that is proposed. There actually was a 7-foot. If you flip back to the picture that shows the front of the building, it'll actually show you the pad that was there. So the addition on that corner would only really be 9 feet from an existing structure that was non-conforming. If you see that white edge, the leading corner, the sideline probably would be, I think, probably 26 and change would be my guess. I really didn't measure that. So on to number 4. The biggest thing with the response on that, I guess that's the suggestion of the planning board to relocate the porch and push it, I guess, further north and then pulling it back from that extreme corner, which they're saying would be compliant, but I guess it's only going to be compliant with the 24-foot throughway. The building still would be non-compliant to the 75-foot setback on Delaware Avenue, as when this building was built, was never compliant in today's time. At a 75, the lines cross in the center of the building, and approximately 10% of the building would be compliant. The rest of the building would be non-compliant to those setbacks from Delaware Avenue as well as Route 13. So any other things that I have? Let me check a note here.
If I may, this 70-foot, it already has a non-conforming distance that is allowed. And could you go back, Jamie? I believe it's the 27 feet 3 inches. And you're correct, Mr. Wise, that is existing, so you can't be any more non-conforming than the 27.3 inches. Even though the 75-foot applies now if you were to build, because this building is existing, as you point out, you just need to continue to meet the 27-foot 3-inch setback, but you can't be any more non-conforming. But yeah, you don't have to meet the 75-foot from Delaware Avenue, since you have a non-conforming but you just can't be more non-conforming than the 27.3.
So would the existing pad, which is going to be probably, like I said earlier, 25 point something to do the math, would that be the point of measurement for non-compliant on Delaware Avenue?
I believe if the structure were still there, but since it's been removed, that kind of,
Gotcha.
yeah.
When you change the footprint, you change the whole, you change everything when you change,
Well,
like,
the
it's
foot-
grandfathered in because, as a non-compliant. That was, you were good so far, but then if you go in and destroy some part of that non-compliance, then you're back to square one. And
Even with remaining walls standing? It was my understanding and interpretation of the rule that if even just one wall was left on that building, you can go back with the same footprint.
I don't believe that is true with the county codes. Mr. Townsend, you know, I don't believe that's true. I'm kind of asking, I guess.
Right, it's not my understanding that that's the proper interpretation.
Yeah, it's, so, I mean, you change the footprint, and unwittingly, it sounds like, but whatever.
Right.
And especially, you know, and that's, part of that is why, you know, you go through these processes and you get permits and all, because the planners here are very excellent at guiding you, but we can't unring that bell.
Right.
So just so, and please continue on then with what you were saying.
The main thing is, obviously, safety was a concern too of relocating. And one other, you know, another option would be to do one-way traffic through that area. There's multiple entrances and exits, and the plan is to do a traffic pattern that will ease any congestion on that side. So we could bring a single lane entry off of Delaware Avenue and a single lane exit on Delaware Avenue, which would flow the traffic, you know, a lot better than showing the exist, or what you've proposed to do, extending up into the north side of the property will kind of condense parking as well as traffic flow in the parking lot.
I'm sure DOT is going to be telling you what you're going to do as far as ingress, egress, and traffic
Right,
patterns. Yes.
right.
So, can you help, you, in your testimony, you said that you thought the porch was essential to the business.
Correct.
And tell me the purpose of the porch.
The purpose of the porch will be obviously for outdoor eating, and with today's COVID pandemic, I mean, it's almost a must. You have every restaurant and food establishment that I see in the state of Delaware, they're eating on the sidewalks, they're eating in the parking lots, you know, makeshift eating outside due to this pandemic. And that's how the businesses are surviving. So without that, it would be a real hit on, you know, a sandwich shop like this.
Okay, so as you're describing you're having a sandwich shop, apparently if you're creating a porch for people to dine, then you plan on people dining in, it's not just a sub shop.
Correct.
It's a place where people are going to come in and have a meal. Now, how many tables? I mean, pandemic, I realize is a whole different scenario, but if we hadn't gone through this, if we weren't in the middle of the COVID thing and all things were just equal, how much seating would you have had in there? Just 2, 3
Inside
tables?
or outside?
Inside.
That all depends whether you give me the permission to build the outside lean-to. it'll obviously change the format if I don't have the outside seating capacity. I'm looking to probably do anywhere from 10 to 15 tables on the inside.
Okay, so so there's no way to move that porch just a little further, off-center it from the side of the building?
Aesthetically, the way it's proposed from the planning board, no, not in my eyes. One other thing would be maybe on that corner of the building, it is not come out the full 16 feet because that actually is going to be a point of entry in the building. So you could maybe do 8 feet there, and that would only cover the existing little block that was there and would put it a lot closer to be conforming to Delaware Avenue, if you understood what I just said.
Getting it. Sometimes I'm a little slow.
But aesthetically, again, that, I have a set of drawings. You don't have that. That was presented when I did the building permit for the roof. That aesthetically, looking at the building with that full 16 foot across the front of the building, obviously is more aesthetically pleasing than doing any jaunt.
I am here to tell you that anything you do to that property will make it more aesthetically pleasing with or without angles. And I'm also going to suggest to you that it's very interesting, the layout of the state of Delaware. For a period of time, I managed a small town here, and it just felt like there wasn't a square or rectangle lot on the entire town. It's like everything has a point or an angle, and that's just how they drew it when they drew it. Like, they went around trees, they let, somebody's barn being it's crazy, it's crazy. So I'm just going to suggest to you that anything you do is going to make it more aesthetically pleasing. The issue, and as well as, the reason for the codes and these, dimensions, setback here, setback there, are safety related. And particularly in this particular, for my sense as a Board of Adjustment Commissioner, it involves safety, and most particularly because of the layout and the fact that you've got what I think of as like, we don't really have, sadly, we don't really have like people do 20, 25 mile an hour speed limits. I mean, it's just as if the signs are invisible. And that could present some issues, because the other thing is it's been vacant so long, and now there's going to be, hopefully lots of coming and going. It's going to be a great sandwich shop. People are going to come, they're going to park and stay and, have a sandwich or take a sandwich with them, but hopefully it's going to be busy. And so it's up to us to try and help you find a medium. And so, and I like to say, especially where safety's concerned, the code, our code, was well thought out, well planned. It's been changed from time to time for many reasons, but the bottom line is it's not a book of suggestions, it's the book of rules. And our task is to try and find a happy medium, but if it gets to the point where you can't use your property, like a takings, it's not possible, then that's why we're here, to help you. And I'm just hoping that as you and I are having this conversation about could you move it this or could you do that, aesthetics aside, you could help us find a happy medium, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is if you could shift it out, I realize it would stick out a little bit on the other side of the building. And And, you know, again, the setbacks are narrow all the way around, but I'm just thinking that is a very, that 24-foot drive to me is an extremely narrow situation. And, you know, even if it's one-way traffic, you know, I'll take a little, you know, I'll think about that a little bit. But you definitely, you know, if you have people coming and going, somebody's up, you know, will go the wrong way, and then you've got head-to-head, you know, people meeting people there, and the shift left or right, depending on which way you're coming, is on a state maintained for all intents and purposes. The way they use our side streets now, even it's to me it's a highway. So, all right. So now you tell me what you're going to say about trying to help me.
So do we know what the single lane sideline would be? Do we assume that's 12 foot if two-way traffic is 24?
I'd have to ask one of the engineers here because that's not my.
Because if that happened, that would, to me, would give you a whole lot more room on that corner.
Don't have any authority to be changing the driveway plans.
Yep, so just reading the code here for that. As we mentioned, two-way drive aisles, 24 foot in width. One-way drive aisles can be 12 foot in width if you have parallel or diagonal parking, or certainly no parking along that side of the building. And there would be a 20-foot width limit if you were doing some type of perpendicular, you know, angled parking there. So if you're going to do no parking or perpendicular, there would be a 12-foot minimum.
So that would conform to that regulation that you have as a single lane.
Let me ask another
What's proposed
question.
would conform, yes.
If they came back in with a layout that was 27.3 feet setback, they still need a variance, correct? In other words, if he came in with a different configuration for his addition and it was 27.3 feet matching the current setback, they would still need a variance?
No, because the minimum is 24. So at 27.3, they'd be compliant and they'd be over by 3 feet. Yeah.
Can I ask one? It seems like on your porch you have it listed as a proposed 16 by 40.
Correct.
It looks to me, if you kept the back setback that's in question, if you made it a 35-foot by 16, it looks to me like that would give you your 24-foot by simply
that's
taking
what I was
5
just
feet.
talking to Joanne about doing, if compromise is in question.
Yeah, I mean, that would settle a lot right there. Boom, you're done.
Yeah.
5 feet, come on. That's
that or the single,
even cutting off, even making that porch 40 foot alongside the building as it is now and cutting it on an angle.
Correct. That would be a proposed idea as well as the single lane passage through.
Okay. Anybody else? So I think at this point, you've given us enough information to go into the business meeting segment, and it does sound like you are willing to meet us in some way. So
absolutely.
So I think, which is always good and always appreciated, and generally reflects with us. So that said, for now, I think we've asked enough questions, and we realize you're willing to work with us. So
let me ask a question of in your decision making, what happens from here? Is this a yes, no, or is it a continued negotiation between us as owners and you as the board?
Well, I chair the board, but I'm just one person here. So,
Right.
So I can't tell you when we get to the business meeting
Okay.
how all this would pan out, what would happen. But from time to time, when we have a situation like this, where we really think, we know you're willing to help us, and you may still need a variance, but it also may be that you're willing to help us. it would not be unusual, and I don't know, because I'm only one person, how this will go, but it would not be unusual for us to table it and ask the planners to get in touch with you and see, as we talk in the business meeting, we might say, well, what about if this or what about that? But anyway, you'd go back and maybe you guys would come up with something. And then the very next meeting, you'd be on the agenda. We'd bring it up from the table, and based on what you all came up with, make a decision then.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, it would delay you till the next meeting. But, you know, the recommendation is to deny, and so at least it gives you some opportunity for us to work with you as much as we can work with each other. We can team up on this.
All right, one more tidbit. I was born and raised on Delaware, excuse me, Delaware Avenue. Can't talk now. The crawl. Born and raised in Harrington, right up the street from this place. The theme is going to be kind of a surfing theme that my father started and sold surfboards on Delaware Avenue in Harrington, and was one of the pioneers to bring that to Harrington. And we're going to kind of try to bring that environment and that nostalgia back to that location and business. And the aesthetics of it will be appealing to the eye far better than what it was. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ms. Denny, if I may.
I'm sorry, Mr. Townsend.
No.
I wasn't even looking in your direction.
I wanted to emphasize an aspect of your response to the question, which is what could happen from this point forward, and you envision the possibility of a tabling to give an opportunity for the applicant and staff to work together. If the applicant wanted to request a tabling because he wanted that opportunity, as opposed to putting it in the hands of the members tonight, then that would be an option the applicant would have. The applicant can't insist on a tabling, but if the applicant desired one, I think that might be a strong consideration for the members.
What Mr. Townsend is saying is, you might want to ask us to table it because, like I said, when we get to the business meeting, I'm one person, and we usually have an opportunity as we go to vote. We'll have some discussion, and I might say, hey, I think we should table this, see if they can work something out. But that doesn't mean everybody or somebody would make a motion and vote for that. So if you choose to ask us to table it, then you know it will be tabled, and it'll give you an opportunity to sort this out. So that was his suggestion.
I think I'm just going to let you guys make the decision. I think you'll make the correct decision, and you'll, if you do make the correct decision, you'll get really good food sooner than later.
Okay, we don't take bribes.
Can I ask
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jason or Fred, if the applicant would agree to this 35 by 16 foot porch, which would resolve the problem that we're talking about, could we then tonight do a modified approval?
You could consider a motion to grant a modified approval that relates to the relief from the applicable setback, and you could justify your motion for that amount of relief and not any more by the ability to configure the deck in a particular way that you might want to describe in support of your motion.
So the thing with that, though, Mr. Cross, and again, simply my feelings are that rather than us just say, okay, it really should be this way, and they said modify it, so let's modify it either their way or way it doesn't leave him completely out because he's expressed what his needs are. But if it ends up getting tabled, then he gets to sit down with the planners and work with a modification that makes everybody, it may not make everybody just elated, but it will definitely be an agreed upon modification. You guys will have to meet each other halfway possibly, but so that was my thought about that.
Yeah, I'd much rather let him work out the details with staff than us try and tell him what to do.
I'm good for making a deal right now. If I go 35 feet like he suggested and then do a 8-foot out to continue on the 40, I'm okay with that. Is that what you're suggesting, or are you just suggesting 35 feet plain and simple to the?
I'm afraid that if we tell you to do that, you're liable to run into problems with DelDOT with your entrance when you get started, and it might not work. That's why I'd rather you work it out with them rather than us trying to tell you what to do.
When it comes to DelDOT, sad but so, they're in charge of us.
Well, that's a whole different world. I mean, I'm trying to get a permit for a porch. That's all I'm doing right now. So I can make the deal.
If you get denied tonight, you lose your fee and you get to start all over again.
That's life.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
So is the 35 foot plus the 8 okay, or?
I don't know about the 8. I'm just looking at this diagram and doing the math in my head.
So but you initially said 35 feet to the, if you're looking at the property to the left, correct?
If you already got 20.3 and you need 24.
I'm talking about the porch extension itself.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the building, if you want to bring up the picture you got right now. So if we go the full length of that building with a porch, come out 16 feet, looking at the right, set that back 5 feet like you proposed, right? That would be the 35 feet. The building's 40 feet, okay? And in that 5 feet, would I be allowed to bring out an extension of even 5-6 feet to have covering for rain and weather protection?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
Ultimately, and again, I'm one person, everybody
Right.
gets to vote, but I'm going to say this to you. For your sake, it might be best if it ended up that they tabled it and allowed you to talk to DelDOT, talk with the planners, and come up again with something where everybody meets in the middle and it works. Because if you're here tonight and we say, okay, we're going to modify this according to what is being suggested, the 35, and then you talk with DelDOT or something else takes place, and then all of a sudden you're back paying to come back before us to modify what we just modified. So honestly, I'm telling you very sincerely, your best bet is to be able to sit down at a table and plan this out and not have it planned. My husband always said, you can't plan anything because I'm not going to live in the Taj Mahal. Like if I got a ruler out and started drawing, let's put this, he's like, oh, no. So, you don't want me for sure, I can tell you that. So I think it's really best. But I'm saying that, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm just one person. So,
Okay. But you'll make the decision whether to table it or not.
There'll be some
Correct.
decision made tonight. Okay,
That's all I
table
can ask
modify
for.
something.
Well, before you go, I think he has
Jason,
a
go.
question and I have a question. So Fred, you want to go first?
So I just want to remind the applicant or emphasize to the applicant that this group's job is primarily to regulate the area where you cannot build. And there are times when you're asking us whether a configuration of a certain size is okay for this group. This group's really only considered, or its job is to defend the area where you're not going to be permitted to extend, and what you're allowed to have within the area where you're permitted to construct an improvement is a function of what the building officials say is appropriate and not what this group thinks is appropriate. So I just want that, that's meant to be consistent with what Ms. Denny is saying, and that is that our focus is different from yours. We're telling you where you can't extend, and you are asking where you would like to extend, and I want to make sure there's no disconnect there between the two.
Yeah, I understand that. The one hard line is that the suggestion was to maintain that 24-foot setback on the thruway. I mean, I think that was the main concern. And I definitely would be in agreement to work towards that, to get that, however it happens.
Yeah, you mentioned you had a building permit you submitted with the county. Was that for just this porch, or did that permit include other renovations?
It was for the roof and the porch, but being as I had to come before the board for,
So you haven't split that roof out and got that approved previously and
Correct.
started working? Would you do that if the board tabled and you'd get you started, or would you wait on everything until?
now I got the building permit for the roof. The trusses are actually being built. They were started.
So you're going to move forward on that
Oh,
roof
yeah,
section no
absolutely.
matter what. So then, would you then move forward with opening the restaurant without this porch, and then if the board approves it in the future, and assuming it gets tabled?
Now
or
it may
denied?
change. I may end up selling it if I don't get the porch. I mean, it's a key, vital thing for me to have.
Thank you. I just wanted to know where your permit was at this time. Thank you.
Okay, we good?
We're good. Thank you, and thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wise. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone online who would like to speak in favor of this application? Please push *1 to unmute. Okay, is there anyone in the room that would like to give testimony in opposition to this application? Is there anyone online who would like to give testimony in opposition to this application? Please push *1. Okay, hearing no further testimony, the application for A20-32 S&T Properties LLC is now closed. Okay, our next application tonight is A-20-33 NKS Distributors Incorporated, owner Big Woods LLC. Do we have someone here tonight representing this application? Thank you, great. We'll call you up when it's time for testimony. So, NKS Distributors Incorporated seek a variance from the maximum building height of 35 feet to construct a warehouse. This property is located on the north side of West Big Woods Road, 1,000 feet east of South DuPont Highway, just south of Smyrna, Levy Court District 1, Zoning District BG General Business. This exhibit shows the proposed height. This is a rendering or an elevation of the building. You can see that kind of the peak there is what's shown as 39 feet. This is looking down West Big Woods Road, kind of towards the east. This is looking at the site. Again, this property, this building has not been built yet, but this is kind of shows you where it will be located. And this is looking west on West Big Woods Road. This is just another shot of the property. This is an aerial photograph that kind of shows you the parcel that this will be built on, more or less in the center of this. You can see the entrance there in the front. And this gives you an idea of the surrounding area. Probably know the Chevrolet dealership there, and there's some other properties there. There's other BG in the area as well, some industrial. Okay, if you'd like to come up and give testimony, please state your name and address, and let our attorney swear you in. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Michael Hoffman of Terrabicos Grasso here this evening on behalf of NKS.
Mr. Hoffman, you need not be sworn as a member of the bar, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Madam Chair, members of the board, as I mentioned, I am Michael Hoffman. I also want to introduce some other of the NKS representatives who are in the room. In the event there are questions, we can call them up as well. We have Bob Taigani, he's the chairman of the board and the CEO. We have Paul Ruggiero, he's the president of NKS as well as the COO. and we have Mike Ryman of Becker Morgan Group, the project engineer. I do have a presentation, and I will, being mindful of the board's time, I will try to be efficient and brief, but I'm happy to get into as much detail as you all would like. As I mentioned, or as was mentioned in the introduction, this is a proposed warehouse distribution facility for NKS Distributors. We did receive an approval for a conditional use from the Kent County Levy Court back in April, so that approval is in hand for this facility. NKS is a Delaware-based company that's been serving and supporting our state for over 70 years. I didn't know this until I started working on this project, but NKS actually stands for Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex. So they are well-rooted in the state of Delaware. They, actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to take this off just for the sake of this presentation. They are in the business of alcohol beverage distribution. So that is the purpose, and this warehouse is intended to be the corporate headquarters for NKS. They will be bringing, it's a $30 million investment that will be bringing about 140 full-time jobs, 100 of which will be new jobs to Kent County. So if we actually go to the next slide, you can see a rendering of the facility looking towards the entrance. If we go to the next slide. This shows an aerial, and I will be brief on this because Mr. Blair walked through this, but the property is located to the west of Route 1 and to the east of Route 13. Next slide. It's currently vacant, unimproved, but it's surrounded by other commercial, industrial, and non-residential uses. Next slide. This is to the north of the site. You have Paradise Nursery. There's a commercial antenna and other non-residential uses. Next slide. This is a slide looking towards Route 1. Next slide. This is looking towards Route 1, again to the east, from the former driving range that is south of the Chevrolet dealership. Next slide. This is looking towards Route 1 to the north. Next slide. This is the Chevrolet dealership that would be to the west. Next slide. This is looking west on Big Woods Road. Next slide. And this is from Route 1 looking west towards Route 13, and you see the commercial antenna tower there. Next slide. This is from Route 13 looking the opposite way towards Route 1. And again, the site is in the center there. Next slide. The property is zoned general business, so it's properly zoned for the use. As I mentioned, we did obtain a conditional use approval. It's the nature and character of the zone is non-residential, other commercial uses. The green zoning to the north is a commercial antenna. So even though that is not necessarily a commercial zone, it is a commercial type use with the antenna. Next slide. This is a site plan. The building has actually shrunk a little bit since this was originally presented. It was originally 260,000 square feet. It's now been reduced to about 217,000 square feet. For our purposes here today, that's not really material, but we wanted to give you a sense of the facility. It is going to be a climate-controlled, self-contained facility. So you'll note that the drive-through is marked, so the trucks will drive in, they'll load and unload inside and interior to the site, and then they will drive off. Next slide. And this gives you, again, a sense of the rendering and what is proposed. Next slide. And next slide. So as far as the variance we're seeking approval for a height of 39 feet when the code allows a height of 35 feet. So it's a variance for 4 additional feet. And the reason for that is, as you can see here, the industry standard is for what's called a 4-pack stack, so that you can stack the pallets 4 tall. That's what's represented in that cross-hatched area there, and that represents about 30 feet within the warehouse facility. In addition, because it's a climate-controlled facility, we need to make sure there's proper circulation so air can cool the product. And that's why you need the additional space above the pallet stacks. In addition, to support the roof, there are beams, and in order to have the space for the beams to support the roof, the additional height is necessary. So when you look to the industry standards of the 4-high stack, it's a science in terms of logistics and how they utilize these facilities, plus the need for climate control, plus the structural need for the beam. That all accounts for the need for the 4 additional feet. Go to the next slide. This is just shows some elevations in terms of the roof and the pitch from the exterior. Next slide. One of the key components is, well, what's the impact on the community and what's the visual impact? 4 additional feet with a facility of 217,000 square feet is really negligible. It's de minimis. You're really not going to notice it. Factor on top of that the fact that the building's going to be located at least 300 feet from your adjacent uses. And again, it's a de minimis, negligible increase. We can go to the next slide, and these just show 300 feet as represented from the ruler. Next slide. That's 500 feet to the rear. Next slide. That's the north. 500 feet. Next slide. And so you get the sense. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have, go ahead.
That stormwater pond looked like he might be big enough to put a water park in there.
And again, one thing I will mention, this was as part of the conditional use approval, so you are conservative in your drawings and you work through, but point well taken. Maybe that's a good side business.
Anybody else? All right, it's kind of clear cut.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
My
you.
apologies, Mr. Hoffman,
I'm
for
sorry.
not recognizing you behind your mask earlier.
That is quite all right. Taking some getting used to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to give testimony in favor of the application? Is there anyone online who would like to give testimony in favor of the application? Please push *1 to unmute. Okay, is there anyone in the room who would like to give testimony in opposition to the application? Okay, is there anyone online that would like to give testimony in opposition to the application? Please push *1 to unmute. Hearing no further testimony, the application for A20-33, the public hearing, is now closed. Thank you.
We will now hear application A-20-34 for County Line Investments, LLC. Is someone here? Thank you, sir. So this application is to seek a variance that off-street parking for non-residential uses located adjacent to a residential district shall not be developed within the required front yard limit of said residential district and the planning area requirement at the end of each parking row to submit a site plan for a contractor's establishment with storage yard. This property is located on the west side of South DuPont Highway and just 0.39 miles south of Marsh Branch Road, south of Farmington. Here you will see by the red line, that is the front setback of 75 feet that he shall meet for the parking. Here in the 2 circles are the areas where there should be parking plantings. This is the front of the building looking from South DuPont Highway, looking down DuPont Highway, and the other way down DuPont Highway. It is approximately the front yard, the 75 feet would be in there, and that's where he would be proposing the parking, the front of the building, the rear of the building, and the aerial. Sir, if you would like to come down and state your name and address for the record and allow our attorney to swear you in.
My name is Danny Humphreys. Address is 11533 Holly Tree Lane, Greenwood, Delaware.
Mr. Humphreys, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Good evening, guys. I'll be brief as well. I know you understand what we're asking here. I'll touch on the parking spots first, and I'll just address a couple of the points that the staff had made that they were in denial for. Point number 2 is that it would change the character of the area. The main reason that the 4 parking spots are there is because it was existing gravel. It was already there. It was already impervious. The engineer thought that it was best. Panoni is engineering everything for me. And they thought that it was best that we use it because it's existing. If we don't use those, he's going to propose that we just use it, go on the other side of the driveway next to the crepe myrtles there, where we have to add more crush and run. So that was the main reason for encroaching on the highway. There is other places to move them to, but it's going to just create us putting more stone down and creating more impervious. And then on number 3, from the staff, they were saying it would create a traffic sight hazard. The fields around there actually are much more of a traffic sight hazard when it's farming season. It's them two parking spots are well off the road, and we have to pull out when we're there. We have to pull out, close to the road because of the adjacent residential properties and the hedgerows and stuff like that. Those 2 parking spots are certainly not creating that, in my opinion. The landscape islands in the rear, it's going to be a construction yard. I think the staff recommended that they could be eliminated. We just had to plant on site the landscaping that was going to be in them, I believe, which is great. That's fine. We'll plant whatever's needed, wherever it's needed, if we don't have to have those islands so that it gets in the way of the trucks. So that's pretty much it.
So essentially, well, just as a matter of housekeeping, because I just like to say this for the record, when there's a recommendation for something to be denied, you know that there's a portion that's recommended by the staff for denial. But the modified approval aspect, you're okay with, as you...
On the landscape islands, absolutely.
Landscape,
Yeah. I believe they offered modified approval on the landscape islands, but not the parking spots, if I read it correctly. Unless I'm misinterpreting something.
No,
So-
the recommendation, I have to read this too. Read again. But the recommendation is to denial of the variance for the off-street parking for non-residential uses.
Correct.
It's located again, but.
Yeah. And so,
Okay.
those I would like to keep them there. The engineer would like to keep them there only because there's existing crush and run there, and he just wanted to use it instead of making other impervious spots. That was the main reason. He did say we can find, so if you look at the site plan, the proposed fence that's going to be going back there won't allow us to go past the porch. So pretty much the only other option is across the driveway closer to the ditch, is what my engineer was telling me. But there was no gravel there, so it only made sense to ask to put it where it was. It was the reason we put it there. The modified for the landscape islands, absolutely. Yeah, we're fine with planning the landscaping if we could just remove the islands. It's a big construction, or going to be a big construction yard in the back, fenced in, and islands coming out. It's not going to be paved, so islands coming out just next to where there's proposed parking for employees would just be in the way of everything. So yes, the modified for that is absolutely fine.
So from the standpoint of traffic and parking, you generally have employees, how many, roughly, give or take?
Right now, currently 12 total.
And then the nature of the business is not that you constantly have a lot of traffic coming and going?
Oh, no, and the business is not there yet. It's Zone BG, and then we're going, and we go before the court next month for the conditional use. So it's all moving forward, and it should be there in 6 months or so. No, it's not a lot of traffic. It's 10 to 12 people coming in the morning, getting in the company vans and going to work, and then generally probably 2 to 3 customers a day coming in for meetings for homes and buildings. So it's not a lot of traffic by any means.
So just as I was going over this when the packet arrived at home, essentially, you have almost like your fleet trucks, for lack of better description there. Somebody comes in, they park their car, they get in one of your trucks, they go about their job. Then occasionally, in the course of daily business, you might have, and that is essentially what I'm asking. How many people come in to buy something, like an over-the-counter or?
Well,
generally-
it's not retail. They would
there's
just
no
be coming in
retail.
for meetings for homes or buildings, so an average of 2 a day
Oh,
for meetings.
okay.
And there's 3 office folks that were there, that pull in, stay there, leave at, 4 in the
Okay.
afternoon, and then a couple people during the day. The DELDOT approvals are all done. All that stuff is,
Okay.
it's not a DELDOT issue like we were, that's already
That's already
done.
resolved, okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else?
I had a question. So you have to have the handicap accessible parking spots, right?
1, yeah.
One, okay, that was my question, if that would push you over or under if you were
There's
denied.
one, and that one is not the one that's in question. It's right next to the porch.
Okay,
The other 2, if you guys didn't grant approval, would have to just get moved somewhere else, but one of those is not handicapped. There's one handicap right next to the porch.
okay.
I do have one other question.
Yes, sir.
Just so I'm clear, it does have here that the applicant is also requesting a variance from the provision that there'll be a planting area at the end of each parking row to allow for complete relief from the parking plantings in the rear parking area. A minute ago, you said you didn't mind you were okay with the modified approval?
If I read it correctly, I'm okay with it. That it said that they could be eliminated, but we would have to plant the shrubbery that would go in those elsewhere. Am I reading that correctly?
I believe so.
Yeah, and yes, we're totally fine. I mean, we have to plant, I don't know what the site plan shows, but a numerous amount of trees and shrubs around it. It's just going to add a few to that, but eliminating the islands. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to give testimony in favor of this application? Is there anyone online who would like to give testimony in favor of this application? Please push *1 to unmute. No? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to give testimony in opposition to this application? Anyone online who would like to give up testimony in opposition to this application, please push *1 to unmute. No? Hearing no more testimony on A20-34, the public hearing for County Line Investments LLC is now closed.
Okay, so at this point, that ends our public hearing. And does anybody need a break? Okay. I need one too. I have to put my hand up a minute. Okay. So we're going to take, 5-minute recess? Is that all right? 5 minutes, and we'll all meet back here.
I said, Mike Hoffman, I know who that is, but I don't know that this is Mike Hoffman. How are you? I was going to grab you when you were walking by. Good. This is actually my first King County. Is that right? Yeah. Well, you've been here, most of them were here for 2, maybe 3, and you're getting more than experience. I just want to make sure I go, full in. Right. That was actually pretty great. The application before, my grandparents used to live across the street. You're kidding? Yeah, did they buy surfboards from that guy? Yeah. Were they surfers? Right. No, I can't imagine the surfboard business. I can't. I'm married. And I looked in the area, you could see my grandparents. No kidding. So, that's cool. But yeah, just wanted to say hi. It's good seeing you. So you guys might be involved sale of something. I might be getting involved in. So I don't think I recognize the name of the attorney, but he's in your office representing the sale of like 58 units in maybe 2 batches and some development.
Okay, that's probably Jeff Grosso.
What is it?
Grosso.
Maybe.
Grosso. So usually, I would assume it's Jeff, and it could be.
Was there Horton? DK
There,
Horton?
that's exactly right. Yep.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is. Yep.
So, Jeff represents Horton.
Yep. Yep. That's what it is.
Yeah, Jeff's a good guy.
Mhm.
So he's done a lot of it. So you're representing the.
Well, I mean, I'm exchanging phone calls right now, but apparently it's something that needs to be done very quickly. So if I'm going to get retained, we'll know next. No problem by the end of the day.
If you need anything, let me know. Jeff, he's really responsive, so I don't have an issue with it. Yeah. Good stuff. Everything good down at the beaches.
Yeah, I mean, great, I guess there's a lot of violations down there of the social distancing measures, and then you may have heard that the Colts is in one state.
I did hear that, yeah.
Everybody's all stirred up about that. The chamber, everyone's begging them not to go. They're really hard-headed folks, I think.
I'm not surprised. Not surprised.
Yeah.
Good. Well, it's good seeing
So
you.
you're still making it, are you in Middletown or someplace like that?
That's actually funny you say that. No. So I'm actually, I sold my house in Felton, and I'm renting up in Wilmington, but I'm currently building a house in Middletown. So
Are you?
I will be in
Okay, there you go. Yep. All right.
So I'm looking forward to that. Should be done in February. So.
Good. And you have kids?
No.
No.
No
Okay.
kids. Which actually works well with a lot of what I do with the night meetings.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
That's what it is.
All right.
Good stuff.
So you guys have gone home?
Yeah. I'm gonna email them. What they say. So
We're still on the clock.
yeah. It's you mark the time and then you back based on the value. The whole deal.
I get it. Right.
Ready to. He was sitting here. I told him I'd email him.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's, board-wise, everybody's here.
And Mr. Sanders.
Oh, yeah. Jamie, are you there? Wake up. Okay, so we're missing at the moment, it looks like, but why don't we we're going to, why don't we do this officially?
Sure.
So we're going to call the business meeting to order. And would you just call the roll and see if we have a quorum? Well, I know we have a quorum, but.
Ms. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Saunders?
Here.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
Here.
Mr. Crossan?
Here.
Mr. Carter?
Here.
Mrs. Denny?
Here.
All 6 members are present and accounted for.
Thank you. So the first order of business tonight are the minutes from the July meeting. I will abstain from voting because I wasn't at the meeting. So I'm looking for a motion.
Crossan, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the June 18th, 2020 business meeting as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? And I'm abstaining. So therefore, the minutes from July 16th, 2020 are hereby approved. I'm looking for a motion on notice of decisions from the July meeting, and they are 20, 22, 23, 24, and 25.
I make a motion that we approve the notice of decisions for A 20-22, 23, 24, and 25 as presented.
Okay, motion is second. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I'm going to abstain because I was not at the meeting. All right, so the minutes, notice of decisions from July 16th are hereby approved. Old business. It looks like we have old business tonight.
Yes, Mr. Chairwoman. We have A 20-21, John P. and Christine M. Wilkins Porter, that was tabled at the last meeting. Staff were supposed to contact the Porters to provide additional information for the board so they could get a better understanding of the location of the well and the distance of the pool from the road and the property line, as well as some other dimensions which they have provided. In addition to that, they have also provided photographs, which we can go over here. Would you like me to reread the original application?
I don't believe it's necessary unless there's somebody here who does. I think we don't need to do that.
Great, we can go right to the information they provided. So this is the subject site again, if we can move on to the next. Great, thanks, Jamie. Again, the variance was from the 4-foot maximum height in the front setback. They were seeking a variance in order to put a 5-foot fence up. And I think there's the next, there we go. So here is some of the information they provided as far as distances. You can see the email where Ms. Porter provided the information. You can see that the property line itself is 14 feet from the edge of the road. You can see that the pool is 36 feet from the edge of the road and 22 feet from the actual property line. There was another question about the well. The board did not want to recommend a modification that would put the fence on top of the well. So we now know the well is 25 feet from the road and 11 feet from the actual property line. So this information again was provided to help the board maybe make a modification to what they were requesting, or help them, decide based on actual numbers and distances. Can you show the additional photos, please, Jamie? So this is some photographs that Ms. Porter provided. She said these trees have now been removed in order to provide better visibility around the corner. That was a concern of the board, putting a fence too close to the road, even at 4 feet, but 5 feet, which they were requesting, could somehow, impair vision around the curve and possibly create a safety hazard. Again, these were the 2 trees that were removed. This drawing here, I think, conceptually shows where the Porters wanted the fence, the 5-foot fence to be placed. Given the dimensions now, it's hard to see what the scale is, but again, the property line starts 14 feet from the edge of the road, so they can't really place it beyond their property line. So this, might be a little closer than 14 feet the way it's drawn. This is just another photograph they provided to kind of conceptualize what it's like for a driver going around the curve and how the fence may or may not impair their vision around the corner. Again, this is a similar photograph, and now the trees are, I guess, shown removed now. They have been cleared, and you can see that's kind of opened up some of the visibility around the curve. This is the driving in the other direction, what you would see, and again, this kind of speaks to whether the visibility would be impaired with the fence or not. I guess you'd have to kind of visualize the fence and how high it would be, and whether that would impair vision and create a safety hazard.
Yeah, and Scott, clearly, based on where the white line is in that picture, that's much closer than 14 feet to the edge of the road. So the fence
No
would
doubt.
not be able to be coming that close.
And I suspect they might not have understood that they could not build beyond their property line to begin with, which is 14 feet back from the edge of the road based on their measurements.
I think if we would have known that in the last meeting, there wouldn't have been any issue. I mean, 14 feet's way, but we didn't.
Precisely, yeah. Again, this is just another perspective going around the corner, and that's all the photographs provided.
And we are putting a fence right on the property line, correct?
So again, here are the dimensions for you to consider.
We are putting a fence right on the property line, correct?
I believe so. That's what yes. And one thing they did provide, if the pool to the property line, if you see there, it says 24 inches. That doesn't make sense. I think that might have been a mistake on their part. But based on the pool being 36 feet from the road, subtract off the 14 feet from the property line, you end up with more like 22 feet, the pool to the property line. So that was a staff correction, not theirs.
Okay, so is everybody, Mr. Saunders, of course, was here last meeting, and he's on the line, so I'm not sure that
I'm online.
Okay, yeah, I feel like I should just maybe not involve, other than chairing the meeting, just because I wasn't here for the whole thing. So, yeah, I had a question, but I'm not even gonna ask it because it doesn't involve me. So at this point, we need a motion and a second.
I will make a motion with the modifications presented that we approve A-20-21.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and when you're ready, call the roll.
Okay, Ms. Hudson.
For A-20-21, I vote to approve with the modified conditions. The owners worked with the board. It doesn't change the nature of the zone. And they did remove the trees, though. That would stop the bending blindness that we talked about last meeting.
Great, thank you. Mr. Saunders.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve A-20-21 with a modified.
Yeah, that's a second.
Mr. Saunders, we already have the motion and a second, so now we're just calling the roll.
Yeah, I'm saying that I approve it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you right.
Oh, okay. Yes, I vote to approve A-20-21 modified, based on the pictures and there's only like 7 houses that are in that area. I think.
Great, okay. Mr. Kusick?
I vote yes for application A-20-21. The applicant did due diligence to provide us the measurements that we requested in regards to the safety going around the bend. The 14-foot offset from the edge of the road to the property line helps a lot, and also the removal of the 2 existing trees on the corner.
Great, thank you. Mr. Carlson?
I vote yes to approve A-20-21 with the modified conditions based on the testimony that was given this evening and the drawings that were presented in detail. The fact that the owners took down the 2 trees, and we now know that the fence will be 14 feet from the road, should make everything good to go.
Great, thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote yes to approve the motion based on the additional information that was provided that we requested, and I don't think there'll be any additional impact on the neighborhood.
We have 5 in favor of the motion, 1 abstain.
Thank Thank you. So having received the required affirmative votes, application A 2021 is hereby approved. Is hereby approved.
Okay, I'll go through these.
We have 3 applicants that remain, so let's just go ahead and get rid of them.
Very good. The first one, let's A20-29, Calvin and Jacqueline Ravenel.
Okay, so looking for discussion, comments, or a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve A-20-29 based on the testimony tonight and the staff recommendation.
Second.
I'm sorry, is that you, Mr. Cusick, that second?
Correct.
Thank you.
So we have a motion, a second. When you're ready, call the roll, please.
Ms. Hudson?
I vote to approve A-20-29 based off staff recommendation. The removal of the restriction does not change the character of the surrounding properties, and the nature of the zone stays how it is.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
I vote yes to approve A-20-29, based upon there was no objections from anybody and staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Crossan?
I vote yes to approve A-2029 based on staff recommendations and the fact that the neighbor that would be in question has no problem, and also there is a fence there that would block any interference that could possibly take place.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes to approve application A-20-29 per staff recommendation, and the uniqueness of the lot, how the rear of the house faces the side property line.
Great, thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote yes based on my motion.
And Mrs. Denny?
Okay, so I'm going to vote yes, because I do see an exceptional practical difficulty that's created by the double frontage, the narrowness of the backyard, and I just want to be very clear on that, because I don't want this to be, for me, a precedent-setting vote. This property is unique and, and has an exceptional practical difficulty. So therefore, I'm voting yes.
Great, thank you. We have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Having received unanimous positive votes, application A 2029 is hereby approved.
Thank you. The next application is A-20-30, Moores Lake Shopping Center, LLC.
Okay, so I'm looking for discussion, comments, or a motion.
Eric Cross, and I'll make a motion. I make a motion that the board follows the staff recommendations and approve a modified plan so that the line matches the existing curb lines and so that the improvement does not cross the property line, and to adjust the lot line so that it would create a parking and drive aisle with a 0-foot setback instead of crossing the lot line, and that the other 2 variances be approved as submitted.
Second.
Motion is second, so when you're ready, please call the roll.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
I vote to approve A-20-30 by the staff recommendation with the modified approval.
Mr. Kusick?
I vote yes to the modified approval as well as the other two approvals made by the staff, that there is a unnecessary hardship present here, that the improvements already exist with two businesses operating on one parcel.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
I vote for approval of A-20-30 based on staff recommendation for a modified variance. The nature of the zone will not change.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote yes to approve A-20-30 based on the testimony tonight and the staff recommended modified approval.
Thank you. And Mr. Carlson?
I vote yes to approve the modified approval based on my motion.
Thank you. We have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
I didn't vote. You.
Oh, I apologize, Mrs. Denny. Mrs. Denny.
I'm going to vote yes to the motion. I feel very strongly that this is absolutely unique and does not set any precedents here. This property definitely needs these improvements, and I think if we were to hold straight to the code in this particular instance and not permit this variance, it would be an extreme hardship to, their ability to improve the property and utilize it as it should be and should have been all along. So, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Denny. I apologize again for. So we do now have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Having received unanimous positive votes, application A-2030 is hereby approved as the modified approval.
If we could just please ask everyone to please make sure you're hitting your buttons so that we can record.
Is mine, can you hear me? Because.
Yes, I think so. It's just a reminder for everyone to make sure you're hitting them.
She doesn't have very many fingers to push the button with.
Thinking maybe it's me.
Okay, the next application will be A-20-33 NKS Distributors Incorporated.
I will be recusing myself from this application A-20-33 as I am employed by a company that is working on this project.
Thank you, Mr. Kusick. Mr. Kusick has recused himself.
Okay. So at this point, discussion, motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve A-20-33 based on the testimony tonight and the staff recommendation.
Crossing second.
So we have a motion, second. And when you're ready, call the roll.
Okay, Ms. Hudson?
I vote to approve A-20-33 based off staff recommendation and without the approval would cause hardship on the owners.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
I vote yes to approve A-20-33 based upon the testimony and staff recommendations.
Thank you. Let's see, Mr. Kusick has recused himself. Mr. Crossan?
I vote yes to approve A-20-23 based on staff recommendations and it's unlikely that the height difference will affect any surrounding properties, and the proposed height would be within character of any development in the area. And if it's going to bring 100 new jobs to Kent County, I think it's well worth it.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote yes to approve A 20-33 based on my motion.
Mrs. Denny?
Okay, so I'm going to vote yes. Certainly believe what the staff is saying here, that from 300 feet away, that it's going to be very unnoticeable. And I think that it absolutely is an exceptional practical difficulty that if we were to hold fast in this particular instance, after they've gone through all the other processes and everything's been approved, because this is an industry standard, and that makes a difference in whether or not they can do business. So, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Denny. Roll call shows 5 yeas with 1 Mr. Cusick recusing himself.
Having received 5 positive votes, application 20-33 is hereby approved.
Okay, I think that covers everyone who's waited behind. So we're just going to go down the remaining list. The first one is A 20-26, Alexis Gonzalez.
Okay, I'm trying to find it here, but in the meantime, if anybody has discussion or a motion, or we're ready.
Crossan, I'll make a motion that we approve A 2026 based on staff recommendations, and that there may be a exceptional practical difficulty due to the unique shape of the property. And there's no other practical locations for the garage due to the front setback.
Second.
So we have a motion, a second. When you're ready, call the roll.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
I vote yes to approve A-20-26, based upon the staff recommendations, and I also believe acceptable practical difficulty of the lots. So.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
I vote to approve for A-20-26 based off staff recommendation, and the failure to remove the restriction would create unnecessary hardship on the owner.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes to approve application A-20-26 per staff recommendation, and it was an existing structure before this applicant purchased the house, and wants to turn it into a contractor business, and it's definitely a hardship on his part to have to move that structure.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote yes to approve A-20-26 based on the staff recommendation and the fact that the building was existing when this gentleman bought the property.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson?
I vote yes to approve based on my, our A-20-26, based on my motion.
Thank you. And Mrs. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes. Again, as my colleagues have said, you know, based on the staff recommendation and the fact that, you know, this building was existing, and I think it would create an exceptional practical difficulty and certainly a financial one if he had to tear it down and start over. And when you look around at the original information we were given the septic area and everything else, I'm not exactly sure how he would be able to conform all that and still be within. So, yes.
Thank you. We have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Having received unanimous positive votes, application A 2026 is hereby approved.
Okay, the next application is A 20-27, James and Deborah Smith.
Okay, any comments or discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion that we deny application A-20-27 based on the staff recommendation and the unwillingness of the applicant to work with us for a modified approval.
I second the motion. Crossan.
So we have a motion and a second. When you're ready, call the roll.
Thank you. Mr. Kusick.
I vote yes to approve that motion to deny application A 20-27. I think the 1 foot setback is a little too excessive, encroaching on that neighboring property. And I think there's alternative solutions that can be considered for this RV structure.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson.
For A-20-27, I vote to deny based off staff recommendation, and the removal restriction would encroach on the neighboring property and change the character of the properties.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
I would vote yes to approve A-20-27. Based upon his testimony, based on having a camper that things like 26,000 pounds to try to move it around in the yard, I think it would be an impractical difficulty. And his neighbor stating that letter of no objection.
Mr. Saunders, just for the record, the motion is to deny, so you're voting no on the motion to deny for the reasons you gave. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. If you have, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have any additional support?
No, that's fine.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Mr. Crossan?
I vote yes to deny A-2027 based on a staff recommendation and the fact that the existing 12.6 foot concrete pad would accommodate the camper with a new higher canopy.
And thank you, Mr. Carter.
I vote yes to deny A-20-27 based on my motion.
And Mrs. Denny.
I'm going to vote yes to deny. I think the applicant seemed very unyielding in his determination to do it his way. I believe that the recommendation that was made, that he raise the roof on the existing canopy and put the trailer there, and it would have been a better resolution. And even if he ended up having a smaller canopy or something, or, with the boat, cover the boat, but certainly to me, to have that canopy with that big of